Hi everyone, my name is Phoebe and I'll be your IELTS coach again for today. Thankfully, we have finished all the IELTS orientation phase. So this time around, we're going to focus on something more beautiful. I mean, we are going to focus on the speaking subtest this time. So what are the things you must know about the IELTS speaking subtest? One, it's a face-to-face interview. Two, it has got three parts with ascending difficulty. It means that it's going to become more and more difficult as you go along. Now, IELTS speaking subtest also has a very strict timetable. The interview can last between 11 to 15 minutes. So break it down. Your part 1 and part 3 has around 4 to 5 minutes, while part 2 has a 3 to 4 minutes. But I would like to emphasize that knowing the 4 criteria in the IELTS speaking subtest is very important. This will help you prepare better to achieving or hitting your target scores. Now, I also made a slide on the things you must never worry. Most of the examinees or candidates, they worry about their presentation. What do I mean by that? They worry about whether to have an eye contact or not with the examiner. They worry about the body language they're showing off or whatsoever. So please do not worry about that because it's not part of the grading criteria. Number 2, most of us worry about whether our ideas is something that the examiner would agree or not. Please do not worry about it because examiners are very much trained to only look not at the content exactly or the quality of your ideas, but they are there to check and assess your English language proficiency, like how you deliver your answers. Also, please stop worrying about your examiner's behavior. We cannot really control and how they act in front of us, although most of the examiners are quite annoying. Yes, it's true. They kind of like show off an annoying behavior. Sometimes, though, they are very friendly. We don't really know how they will act in the actual test, but I don't want you to worry about how they will treat you, how they ask the questions, because it's not part of the grading systems as well. Okay, next, what are the scoring criteria? Fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Let's go and take a look at them one by one. But in my next slide, you will see that I only focused on band 7 to band 8. Why? Most of the government institutions and wherever you are applying for, they are requiring you a band 7 to band 8. It seldom happens that I haven't even really heard anybody being required to get a band 9. Probably if you really wish to get a band 9, that's yours. That's your preference, okay? So for the fluency and cohesion, what are the things that you have to think about? Now, if you want to get your band 7 to 8, just avoid self-repetitions. Self-repetitions, what do I mean by that? Like, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Okay, you're repeating yourself. Exactly, literally. That's self-repetitions. Self-correction, when you're trying to actually correct whatever that has been said first. Say, for example, you probably thought that there is a better expression to describe what you wanted to say, and you keep correcting yourself. That should be avoided as well. Language-related hesitations also must be avoided. Language-related hesitations is when you hesitate answering because you are at loss for words or you are confused as to how you could grammatically structure correctly your answer. Please also avoid responding so late. Like when the examiner is asking you something, you have to really quickly respond to it. Okay. Also, part of the fluency and cohesion is avoid going off topic. Of course, right? I mean, you must never, because if you do, that basically means you have a low proficiency in the language. Okay, one of the most forgotten in this criteria is actually your cohesive features, your cohesive devices. Do not keep using the words and or but in your answers. Say, for instance, instead of saying and, you can say and, apart from that, besides, and so on and so forth. Now, the next criteria is called the lexical resource. The lexical resource is just the same as your vocabulary skills. If you want to get a higher band score, up to band score of 7 to 8, you must really show flexibility and precision, which means you must not be using a word for an incorrect meaning in your concept or in your answer. Another thing that you have to really take a look at in the lexical resource is the use of less common expression. I mean, if you really want to get a high band score, at least use some idiomatic expressions naturally, or maybe collocations. Okay, collocations, by the way, what is it? Maybe instead of just saying, my friend is a smoker, you could say, my friend is a chain smoker, right? Or instead of saying, I was so happy, I was very happy, you could use an idiomatic expressions like, I jumped for joy, right? So there are many more that you could actually learn by researching. Of course, please do not use obsolete expressions that we don't use anymore these days. Next, grammatical range and accuracy. The most important thing here in grammatical range and accuracy is not really making complex sentence structures. In grammatical range and accuracy, it's more of avoiding to make mistakes. Please avoid making mistakes in the grammatical formats of your answers. So that's what you just really have to think when you are preparing for band 7 to 8. Lastly, we have pronunciation. The pronunciation also has, by the way, 25% 25% of your score in the IELTS speaking subtest. So pronunciation here, you just have to take note that you are not using a mechanical tone like uh uh like that is the sound of a mechanical tone. It sounds like a robot, right? So here you must really just know how to talk naturally. Mhm. Next, let's talk about the three parts right here. So in part one, as I mentioned, it has 4 to 5 minutes. It's actually easier. Why? Because you just have to introduce yourself. Of course, they will ask you what introductory information they would want to know, like what your job is, are you working, are you studying, where are you from, or some sort of things like that. It can also be about personal interviews about sports, science, books, and so on. Normally, part one has 2 topics, but as I have been teaching for a long time, so normally they have 2 topics, but some students get as many as 5 different topics actually, and some students get just one specific topic for part one. But I really don't want to pressure you and stress you out with part one because it's just a warm up. You're not yet graded here. There's no remarks or gradings that's happening here in part one. So I need you to focus more on your fluency this time. Show them that you could talk. Show them that you enjoy using the English language rather than worrying about your grammar or vocab. In part two, though, this is the start of the real test. You will be given a 1 minute preparation time wherein you could write some keywords in a piece of paper with a pencil that they will be providing. After your 1 minute preparation time, you will be talking all by yourself in 1.5 to 2 minutes. That's the thing that I call monologue. Okay, the common topics for part two are describe a person, describe someone, describe a place, describe an object, describe an activity, describe an event, describe your favorites. Normally, these are the common topics. So you need to get acquainted with the different recent topics that are there. You're actually quite lucky because online these days, we could find the more current questions and we could practice the more current questions. And for part two, since it's the start of the real test, you need to focus on showing off that you have flexibility when it comes to vocabulary. You must know how to paraphrase effectively. You must know how to use your idiomatic expressions or collocations more naturally. Part three so far is the most difficult part, honestly, because this is more of a discussion type. So most of the topics here or questions are very much related to your part two answer or your part two task or question. So in this part, you're not given any sort of preparation time. You must really respond right away. So that's the difficult part here because questions are more complicated and you don't have a preparation time. Not to mention, at this point of time, they can actually do many follow-up questions to your answers, right? So for part three, I think the most important thing to focus on or concentrate on is your structure, how you organize your thoughts here, because you may have a lot of ideas, but you're not delivering it in a way that your examiner would easily understand or perceive, right? So that's all for part one, two, and three. Now, here are the sample questions for part one. Say, for instance, where are you from? I am from Cebu, guys. So how do you answer this question? I'm from Cebu. It's the Queen City of the South and one of the most popular holiday destinations, not only among the locals, but also among the foreign tourists, right? You get to give more information than just answering, I'm from Cebu, period. If you want to get a high band score, be talkative. We also have questions like, do you like the area that you live in? What science subject do you like? What do you usually do on your birthday? Are you good at reading maps? Or so, and so on and so forth. Okay, this is also an example for your two. Part two. Describe a person you know who loves to grow plants. Okay, I think these days we have actually plenty of plantitas and plantitos, as we call it in our own dialect. So yes, we could just basically describe that person using these four bullet questions. Okay, but we'll go probably into details of your part two sample questions once I give you the practical tips in a different video. These are also the example questions for part three, which is related to the previous topic on the person who loves to grow plants. Okay, for example, they have questions here like, are there many people growing their own vegetables now? And people just basically say, well, my mom, my neighbors, and my classmates really love growing own vegetables. Is that even a right response? Yes, it's within the response that they are expecting, but not a good answer because there is no organization and structure. Are there many people growing their own vegetables now? It's a yes or no question. So answer the question directly before even explaining or giving an example. Yes, there are many people, especially around me, who have grown to loving their own vegetables in their own backyards or front yards or even in pots indoors. And then you get to go explaining or give an example for that one. Okay, so I think that's it. I don't want to make this video really long. It's already long. It's 13 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can drop your comment below and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!